And yeah, great to see some thought leadership in action.
I mean, hearing Charles speak at NFTXLV made me realize that, again, these leaders of these foundations are truly preaching the breaking down silos. It's got to trickle down to the rest of the communities where all of the projects are echoing it as well, and the community members are doing the same. So we're all marching to the same, beat of the same drum. But hearing it from the top down, I think is it's so refreshing. Sonny Lou's saying the same thing over in our foundation, and now it's just about trying to find where we can align on the outputs of what we are going to be delivering to the world. And, Charles, it looks like we got you back up here. Can you hear us all right? We lost you on audio for a second. Yes, sir.
I tell
didn't
you,
want to interrupt you, and we thought we rugged for a second. So you had me nervous.
I could hear all you guys just fine, and just for some reason the mic cut off. Twitter's the biggest pile of shit these days with spaces.
Oh,
it's
brutal.
It's extraordinary.
It's brutal.
The desktop app is extraordinary.
I mean, with the amount of resources behind it, you'd think they could figure out how to make sure we could stay up and have a conversation, especially when we just got you going. But Charles, you kind of got cut off there. Is there any final points that you want to add there? I know we had a few questions about what you were talking about.
Well, yeah, I was just talking about I was just talking there about recursive snarks. I mean, the holy grail of interoperability between blockchains is more of a theoretical question, which is what is the minimum amount of knowledge you need to have to be able to securely interact with another blockchain system? So let's say that you're Bitcoin and you're talking to Ethereum, or you're Ethereum and you're talking to Vechain, or Vechain talking to Cardano. You don't want a situation where the minimum amount of knowledge is a full node, because those are going to grow to terabytes or petabytes or exabytes if these systems are successful and useful. You'd like a situation where that grows very small, like it's either constant or logarithmic to the state of the system. And that's really the big area of research that we've been doing amongst many other in the industry, with things like next generation snark systems, and a lot of these recursive snarks and these types of things, where you kind of push the burden onto the prover, the person actually creating the proof, and they do a lot of great work there. But then the verifier gets a very concise and small proof. So I think within just a few years, we're going to crack that as an industry, and we're going to have kind of a golden era of interoperability, where it's very easy for blockchains to talk to each other. And then because of smart contracts, they're going to start doing that in an automated way. So you're going to end up having blockchain systems kind of negotiate with each other for services, whether it be decentralized hosting, or it be, more network capacity, or compute, like the whole Polkadot global vision that Gavin wants to push towards. It's an exciting time, because it's getting us past this blockchain versus blockchain mindset, and it's more like, hey, I want to sell my services to as many people as possible. How do I do that and kind of have the technology fade into the backdrop?
I love that. And I think my favorite argument for that is kind of the plastics discussion, to keep it simple. Nobody cares about what kind of plastic container you have. They just care, can it hold the things I'm looking for? Nobody cares about the blockchain as long as it can provide the output that everybody is looking for. And so the fact that you have that mindset, that we're kind of moving there, extremely exciting. And, Exo Worlds, I know your hand was up before we got cut off previously. Is there any questions that you have for Charles about what we were just chatting about, or anything else he added here?
Absolutely. First of all, great to have you here, Charles. I wanted to know, because Exo Worlds, we're a gaming project, and we went cross chain, and one of the biggest barriers, I think, to getting into Cardano was the coding, the language used. And so my question to you is, what do you think is going to happen to the space across all blockchains in terms of allowing developers to seamlessly develop on any chain they want without those barriers?
Well, part of it is you have to have a good strategy for each class of developer. So because of our roots, we started with high assurance development, and we have, a direct line to the Haskell programming language. But, if people ignored Cardano for 2 years, they probably aren't aware that we have Aiken, which looks a lot like Rust. And people say, oh, wow, that I know how to write that code. And actually, there's even TypeScript that's working its way into the Cardano ecosystem. So if you're a web developer, it's like, wow, I actually know how to write a smart contract. And so it's a world of difference. And that was my point. It takes like 3 to 7 years for an ecosystem to mature. But there's kind of two sets of programming. There's the how do I write the dApp for the host infrastructure, and then what is the connecting tissue to call other pieces of infrastructure on an as-needed basis, almost like a microservice or like an API call or this type of stuff. What does that look like? And this is why ventures like Layer Zero have raised $120 million at a $3 billion valuation for their Omni Apps idea, where they're starting to think around that blockchain of blockchains idea. And it's very similar with Chainlink as well, and they've been pushing this direction. So there's probably a half dozen, the meta blockchain ventures that are thinking around that DevX. And what will end up happening is frameworks will be created. We saw the same thing in the JavaScript world with Angular, and things like Polymer, which I think became Flutter with the Dart ecosystem. You got Meteor.js. You have dozens of these things. React, and basically they allow you to do a lot of very complicated things, and they stitch those complex things together. The same for Ruby on Rails, or any of these other frameworks that are kind of turnkey. So our Rails moment for the blockchain industry is starting to work its way through. And then what ends up happening is that you'll see a collection of dominant paradigms, just similar to like you have an MVC paradigm in the Rails community. Uh, Obviously, there's different paradigms that people use for full stack, which will just kind of work their way through. And a lot of these things will just, the complexity will be hidden from the end user. And then people will develop services to smooth out some of the rough edges behind blockchain. So you need an identity service for self-sovereign identity, account management, creation. You'll need services for private data analytics and analysis so that people don't have to be data warehouses or custodians of their users' data. So it's much more in line with that Web3 ethos. You're going to have things that manage the finality and latency concerns between different chains, because all these things operate at different clocks. So some people have very long settlement time, for example, like Bitcoin. Other things are very fast, and they run BFT protocols, so you get really quick settlement inside of them. So that smoothing function and queuing function too, especially when you want predictable pricing, that's basically the interplay between a kind of a mesh of layer twos and the backbone layer ones. And then you'll get eventual settlement throughout the system, as well as fee marketplaces, where basically people kind of build marketplaces to manage the cost of operations for all the services. And then somebody kind of takes the volatility risk, and the other person gets predictability with the fee structure. So that kind of meta blockchain of blockchains notion, that's where the industry is moving. And I think we'll get most of that sorted out over the next 5 years to 10 years. And then it'll be much, much less about, well, which one's going to win? It's, well, everything's fluid now. Users can move, tokens can move very fluid, and transactions can move in a very fluid way, but it's still Web3 at its core.
Very well said. Thanks a lot for that. Very excited for the future of both our chains. Definitely looking at ADA and Cardano in terms of blockchain expansion, great user base. So thanks a lot for answering my question.
Stu, I see your hand is raised. Do you have a question here for Charles on stage?
Necessarily didn't have a question, but I did just have a comment in terms of just in reference to just like what I heard. But I definitely, appreciate like in terms of just the interoperability and just seeing the whole landscape of the space and how, necessarily it's like it's too early just to be just on one chain particularly, because you're gonna need different ecosystems, because not only we scheming in terms of what we're trying to do in Web3, but also these companies and these bigger ecosystems, they're looking at the chain too. And I feel like it'd be foolish not to think that they're looking at different people in the ecosystem, how things are being built, processes being, systems being put together. And they're also scheming as well. So just finding different chains to how we can work together to build that greater ecosystem. Because in my opinion, I feel like the space is too small to just say, let me dominate this certain sector. It's wide open. We're going to have numbers and numbers of people just come into the space in terms of just layers upon layers of people. So being able to have that process set up to where people could come on and get onboarded, and like you talked about, like the fluidity within that process, I think that's what's going to create like more users, because it's so much resistance that comes into being in Web3. You got to create so many wallets, you're afraid of getting jacked. Like, it's just so many things within the technology. And then also I like that you highlighted in fact of how the blockchain actually matures, because I got in on Cardano, and like even my experience in Cardano, it helped me get the as far as confidence to go off into other chains and ecosystems, but actually growing with a blockchain and seeing, all right, I got in like 6-7 cent, and then seeing the price raise with just anticipation and catalyst, and then actually being able to interact with that technology. I don't necessarily look at the price. I look at what's being built and the opportunity cost as far as getting into those ecosystems. But definitely appreciate you coming on, and like it's just a lot of
Yeah.
great opportunities out here.
Yeah, and I guess Charles, building off what Stu said, you've got, Jake, if you haven't met him yet, from the Vechain Foundation here, who is the head of Vechain's comps. And we were talking about how these teams have to start working together. Well, we've got two giant teams here. What do you think we can be starting to do if there's things that you have opinions on to push this space forward with these two ecosystems?
Well, I mean, I'm always going to say, hey, come and become a partner chain. I even made the
I
same
was
pitch
waiting
to
for it.
Silvio. Yeah, I made the same pitch to Silvio McCauley. I called him up. I said, Silvio, come on, man. It's like, let's figure this out. What's so cool about the partner chain framework is that, as it reaches its fullest form, you can layer many consensus algorithms together. So you kind of get the best of both worlds of being a layer one and layer two. And if we kind of think around it, what we're really pushing for is blockchain to blockchain sales. And so the advantage of Cardano is, we're listed on over 200 exchanges. There's a ton of liquidity, really solid DeFi ecosystem, and the roadmap is built for just rock solid stability. It's kind of not like Solana where they say, hey, let's get as high TPS as possible, and every now and then it goes down, and these things. We're really like, hey, it never goes down. It's been around 6 years running constantly, no problems. And it iteratively gets faster and faster, and we just get more capabilities. So that slow, deliberate backbone is really an awesome source of security. And then what it does is it frees people up to actually start optimizing themselves. If you don't really have to worry about the consensus layer of the system, then you can layer an ultra high performance BFT protocol. And you say, hey, I'm always going to be able to get a secure quorum for this. And then suddenly you can adopt something like Narwhal and Tusk. And in their labs, they were showing 500,000 transactions per second. Plus if you get a whole service layer and you get all these really advanced snark capabilities, then suddenly you get these really awesome rollups or really awesome recursion. You get regulated value transfer protocols. You get a whole identity layer with Atala Prism. And so you can say, hey, we don't have to worry about that core infrastructure anymore. We can focus on commercialization and sales, and we can focus on getting Maersk to get all their ships on our system. We can focus on, every hospital in the United States doing their entire inventory systems, with us or something like that, instead of worrying about the technology. Because the problem is the technology to compete, it gets more and more complicated and specialized. You got so much really complex distributed systems theory and cryptography, and we had to build an army of scientists to keep up with it. We got 168 scientists we co-author papers with. We got labs at Stanford, CMU, University of Edinburgh, Tokyo Tech. And we're rolling with Ethereum and these other guys. And we just had an event with Ethereum with QSIG for quantum computers. And we're already talking about like how to develop one-shot signature systems for quantum computation. And we're like, holy shit, we might actually be able to see these things working in 5 years. It used to be a fantasy. Oh, quantum computers, that's 30 years from now. It's like fusion or some shit like that. Now it's on the horizon. And so it gets more and more difficult to have a roadmap where you're like, okay, I have to keep up with all that, build all that technology, figure all that stuff out. And also I have to go and sell to everybody and actually get commercialization, adoption, and build a network effect. It's like, you got to pick and choose your battles. And we saw this a lot in the evolution of the internet, in the 1990s, the 2000s, 2010. The whole point of the cloud was, yeah, you could run your own servers, but let's be honest, if you don't, and we take care of that for you, maybe just maybe you guys can focus on adoption. Netflix ended up going down that way. They run their whole back end on Amazon. And they're a massive company. They make boatload of money. But at the end of the day, they're not a hosting company. They're a content company. And what they're trying to do is maximize the quality of the content, the delivery of the content, the consumption of the content, the technology behind hosting to have to keep up to date with the latest cloud stuff. It gets pretty cumbersome, especially as things change all the time. And it's not a core business unit. So that's one thing I always advocate is kind of like know your core business model and where you want to see your growth from. And if you do still, after that assessment, think there's value in controlling the infrastructure end to end, then where you benefit from cooperation is through standards. So even if you don't want to migrate, then it's more of a question of, okay, well, we have common problems, and it's in everybody's best interest that a lot of these problems get resolved. Like I tell you, one area I'd love to see development on is a DSL for supply chain. I actually have a venture at in my portfolio. It's called Ghostfire, and we're just about to leave silent mode, but we're building genetically engineering plants to glow in the dark, and it's super fucking cool stuff. But one of the things we're very interested about is tracking all of those plants. To know where they're at and what's going on with them, because we want to actually eventually issue carbon credits for them and create a whole marketplace where you represent a plant with an NFT and it mines carbon over time, and we can genetically engineer the plants to be like super carbon sponges. And there's already a few people in the industry doing this, like Living Carbon is one as an example. So I don't want to go and try to figure out, God, how do I build the ultimate supply chain
Of course.
blockchain and put all this shit together. I don't want to be that guy. I just want to make glowing plants, man. And
Hey,
I want a
you
turnkey
kind of have
solution
that
and have
guy.
all these things work. And so that's the point. Is like you always know what you want to be good at and where you don't want to compete. And then you just try to find some good partnerships with people and good ways of handling it.
Well, that's why I'm saying I think you got that guy here with, the VeChain Foundation. They partnered with BCG to push a decade-long mission on sustainability initiatives all around this exact concept that you're talking about. And so I guess, Jake, anything that's coming to your mind here about, just kind of some of Charles' thoughts, what he's saying, and what you guys are currently working on with BCG? Because, that is kind of where you guys are playing and seeing a lot of success.
Yeah, hey Charles. First of all, great to e-meet over the space. Thanks for joining, man. Saw you at Rare Evo, kicking butt on stage. Yeah, always great to hear you speak. Secondly, yeah, I think what you've just described very much aligned with what we're doing at the moment. Obviously, quite developed our reputation around supply chains, but more kind of recently now, we've got this partnership with Boston Consulting Group, and they're very proactively involved in the ESG sustainability space. And as you kind of touched on, like everything comes from supply chains, right? So we've taken this. I guess you could call it a pivot, but it's not a pivot. It's an expansion of what we've built over the years through, supply chain enterprise kind of application scenarios, and yeah, working closely with Boston Consulting Group now to kind of take that to the next level, which is building in things around incentives and rewards for companies, so like kind of next gen loyalty programs almost for consumers. So you engage with a sustainable brand, you can be incentivized and rewarded for your kind of engagement with that company. Yeah, very much a cool kind of development from one of the world's leading management consultants. And I mean, it could be a great venture for us to discuss what you're talking about. I mean, Boston
Yes, it
Consulting Group are
should.
proactively involved in kind of helping guiding development, specifically in blockchain related sustainability applications. I mean, it could be of interest for you at some point.
Yeah,
Charles,
absolutely. As we kind of get through the year, I'll definitely reach out and pick your guys' brain on things. In the partner chain framework, we're beta testing a lot of the concepts this year, and then it'll reach its full potential over the next 2 years, 2025 and 2026, with the deployment of Midnight. And then our anticipation is we'll see dozens of them kind of enter the ecosystem. And what's really cool is once you don't have to worry about establishing that root of trust, you could really then focus on finality and ultra high performance, and then you just get a whole bunch of great tools there. And that was one of the reasons why we looked at Parity Substrate, because the whole roadmap that they had there was quite compatible with this type of service view. But what we never liked was this parachains basically being completely connected and beholden forever to Polkadot. We said, well, that's kind of against the ethos of blockchain. You should be able to check in and check out. You don't want a situation where you can only check in. So one of the things we worked really closely on was this idea of multi-resource consensus, where you layer consensus protocols, and then the community through their token can dynamically adjust what the distribution looks like. So it's a way of partnering with not just Cardano, but hopefully in the future, other systems, potentially even Ethereum validators. So you can kind of share rewards and share transaction volume, and you can kind of see where the world goes. So definitely something to discuss, and no urgency or anything to do this year. But it's always good to know your neighbors and know what people are doing. And you guys have always been around, and I've always admired the VeChain community. And it's always nice to see that you keep trying to work on real world use cases and real world adoption. There's just so much stuff out there where people couldn't give a damn about that. The whole point is just to tell the story to get a token and the token to get money. It's a lot harder to actually build stuff that people use, and it's nice to be around people who build stuff.
Well, I think that's why our communities get along so well, Charles, is because everybody is preaching that same mission. I mean, obviously, you guys are, kind of a little bit, our big brother when you look at it in terms of the maturity of your ecosystem and where, you guys are paving the way. And we're both preaching that same mission, which is why it just makes so much sense to continue to work closer together and see what we can do. And I mean, we've got one of the events that's helped kind of bring these communities closer together up here. Rare Evo, we attended NFT XLV. I sorry to call you out, Rare Evo, but is there anything that you guys, have opinions on in terms of how these two ecosystems can continue to work together toward these goals? Just because I think we've got the right people in the room to make sure that these types of conversations can not just be conversations, but actions to move forward.
Yeah, absolutely. This is Wes. Love seeing Cardano and VeChain leads as well as community, whether it's in a space shared together or under the same roof. Hopefully at Caesar's Palace this year, and last year being in Denver, Colorado. It's been awesome to see, things I think that, may have grown out of Rare Evo, being presumptuous here, but seeing Sunny at the Cardano Summit in Dubai, getting to shake hands with him and see him on stage, and just, yeah, like getting to know your neighbors. I think our communities are of similar size. We have certain initiatives that we focus on, just thinking about sustainability and how VeChain's taken it to the level where, they're getting Boston Consulting Group in, but then taking it back to like the old days of Charles, your famous tweet of your Raspberry Pi running a stake pool. So there's all of these interconnections that have yet to be really like connected, I would say. And I think we're getting closer and closer to that, from real events to healthy conversations like these. Hearing partner chains and just hearing the beginning of all this, and the potential that it offers is pretty crazy. We're still working on becoming friends, in many ways, and it'll be awesome to watch it grow, in the next half decade.
I agree, man. I think, Charles, we're from a similar era in terms of, well, you were obviously earlier than me to the space, but I still remember when it was very tribal back in the day, and like, getting involved with crypto in like 2016, 2017, it was like,
It was
the
very tribal
silos.
back in the day. It's still very tribal, especially
Very
with
true,
Team
very true.
Orange.
But my point is, it's really encouraging to see actually like this more proactive kind of outreach among certain communities. I mean, I can't speak for the entire kind of scope of crypto, but I think there's at least the recognition, right? And you've got thought leaders such as yourself coming in and into a VeChain space and kind of living that notion. I think it's pretty telling, and it's great to see.
So I guess the call to action here with just this crew of individuals is to keep this communication channel open. Charles, I encourage you to continue to interact with Jake and team, and Jake vice versa. Obviously, all of our community members can poke around and do the same. But like we were talking about, leading from the top down, you guys are that top. And I think that the more that you all push this initiative of these are best friend ecosystems working toward the same goal, the more that every project and every community member is going to be echoing that. And so that's my call to action here is we need to keep these conversations going. Can't just be in Twitter spaces. Would love to start formal cadences in the future with you all, but I don't want this to end here because this has been a fantastic discussion. And I think it could be the start or continuance of something great. So Satoshi, anything that you have to add there?
Yeah, I absolutely second what you just said. But Charles, good to see you again. And it's funny, before you joined the space, I had my hand up, and I was going to say something to that effect. I was going to say to Jake and the VeChain account, like, encourage you to join other Twitter spaces, even if it's just as a listener, to just kind of show that you're in there, interested, learning, want to participate, want to give, insight if it fits whatever they're talking about. But just kind of exploring around Web3 more, because you never know what kind of opportunities will present itself. Like what Charles just said about the plants of sustainability and everything like that is a perfect fit for something that Vechain is doing in partnership with Boston Consulting Group, right? Like just joining other Twitter spaces and seeing if and when you can provide some insight or guidance or narrative that would help push that subject forward and create opportunities is super important. So I was actually going to say that before Charles even came up on the space. So it kind of fit perfectly. And I was just kind of, obviously Charles coming in, I guess he can take the spot in front of me to speak. I mean, whatever, I guess, Charles. No, I'm just joking. But I think it's really important, and I think something that Cardano does really well is it's always in the conversation with whenever people are talking about Ethereum and Solana and Cardano is always in that conversation too. And that's something VeChain needs to get back into the swing of things of, and being in that conversation and stealing back some of that mind share of the greater Web3 ecosystem, because VeChain does have really awesome tech and it is doing really cool things. And like Charles alluded to, is always pushing towards adoption and real life use cases. And people need to hear that more. And I think doing these things and connecting with some of these other bigger blockchain foundations and just being in the conversation is the way to do that. So um yeah, I just wanted to make sure I hit on that before we close things up. But thank you everybody, and thanks Charles for taking the time and being here with us today.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure to be here.
Ferg, what you got to add?
Just wanted to say thanks, Charles, for joining. We do this once a month, Connor, Satoshi, and myself. So feel free to stop by and put your input in or whatever. We do it once a month with the VeChain Foundation. We've had Sonny join a few times. Hopefully, we'll get him back here in the near future, and maybe you guys can chop it up, and we can kind of see how you guys, two brilliant minds, go at it in real time.
Well, maybe we take it a step further. What if we do a monthly space with the Cardano ecosystem and the VeChain ecosystem? Sure, we have our smaller discussions that can happen here, but maybe we start to open up a larger discussion with these two groups. And everybody's speaking the same language. The first part of taking these actions is just conversation to figure out where we want to start. I guess that goes back to Charles and to the foundation. Would you guys be open to helping facilitate some type of discussion? And maybe it's not monthly, but some type of cadence where our communities can come together here on a space and have this type of conversation.
Well, Cardano is a huge ecosystem, and you're going to have no trouble finding leaders within that ecosystem, whether it be through Intersect or the foundation or my own work, to come in on a regular basis and talk to you guys. So absolutely, where and when I have the ability to join, I'll definitely do that. My problem is I run 6 companies, and they're all a little different. And this has been a kind of a brutal last 3 weeks. I literally just got back from Scotland, and I'm still a little jet lagged. And so I said, all right, I'm going to putz around on Twitter, today, kind of a lazy Sunday. So where and when I have the opportunity to join, I definitely do. But unfortunately, it can't be all the time. That said, Fred Regard from the foundation, I know he loves you guys. And, there's also Nigel over at Intersect and, a bunch of founding entities and other entities in the Cardano ecosystem that would benefit from this dialogue. I tell everybody in Cardano land, I say, we're not an island, damn it. We all need to talk to each other. We all need to interact with each other. And, it's a little disheartening when you see like the Electric Coin Capital report come out, and page 34 of it shows Cardano, and it's kind of just like isolated off in the corner. I don't think that's entirely true, but at the same time, there is a kernel of truth to it, that we sometimes get a reputation for being oh yeah, those Cardano guys as well. We're always the last to be mentioned. Like, yeah, I forgot about those guys. Yeah, what are they up to? It would be nice to know our neighbors a little better.
Well, let's make it happen. We'll get some of those entities aligned. I encourage those entities, reach out to us. We'll start reaching out to one another. I know Rare Evo, you've been a fantastic bridge between the ecosystems as well. Let's make this happen. And everybody, stay tuned for some updates. Charles, of course, it's great to have you when we can get you, but hey, we've had 15 of these, and we've gotten Sunny on 3 or 4. When you're free to pop in, absolutely would love to have you on future ones. So I think we're all aligned here on some potential next steps, and I'm just happy some of this action is being taken, because this is the group that can start to move some mountains. I mean, we've got 320 people in the listeners here, and everyone's here because we're all preaching the same thing. So let's make some moves, team. Any final thoughts from anyone? I know we're coming up on the end of our space. Don't want to cut it off short if anybody's got anything, but want to be conscious of time.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I can weigh in. Obviously, love the concept and the notion. I think it's been great last year. Wes being a great kind of uniting force there as well with the Cardano communities. I mean, Rare Evo was a phenomenal event last year. I love the idea of getting in more spaces with people from around the Cardano ecosystem. I met a bunch of people from the foundation at Rare Evo, various kind of individuals over the weekend coming to ask about Vechain, and me asking vice versa. I mean, it's always fascinating to meet your neighbors and build closer bonds. I think it's a win-win for everyone, right? So yeah, I love that idea, and look forward to doing it.
Yeah,
Well,
thank you for the kind words, Jake. Always happy to facilitate.
Look forward to this year, Wes. I hear it's going to be a big one.
Oh, I'm just so excited to join as well. There's no more FOMO of Rare Evo. Team, this was a fantastic space. I cannot wait for the Meet Your Neighbors spaces that will be coming after this, and the recurring ones to follow. But let's go around the room here for any closing thoughts. Charles, we'll start with you. Thank you for joining us again today. It was a fantastic discussion. I'm looking forward to future ones here, and looking forward to shaking your hand in person at one of these next in real life events.
Well, absolutely. We as a broader blockchain ecosystem, we just have to be cognizant that everything is bottom up, and what you see is what you get and what you build, and nobody's going to carry the bag for us. The problem with the legacy world is they have all the institutions. They have the media, they have the central banks, they have the governments, the legislators. And I've been in the crypto space for so long. I remember uh, each and every one of the proclamations that crypto is dead. I think there's like 300 obituaries or more I've read for Bitcoin. And it just shows you their mindset. So if we don't constantly, as an ecosystem, work together and support each other and grow, then the default state of affairs will be that the system will fade away, and we'll basically lose this golden opportunity to decentralize the world. So a big chunk of that is real world utility, real world business use cases, and getting those into the blockchain space and showing that not only are they philosophically more pure, but they end up being better, faster, and cheaper and safer in the long run. So it's nice to be part of that conversation and just see how that's evolved over time. And I'm all in favor of any ecosystem that has these core ethos at with their community. So I'm glad to see that there's a lot of great neighbors that have this mindset, and anything I can do to get to know them a little bit better and collaborate where and when it makes sense, it's good to be in that environment.
Well, Charles, one of the ways that you can get to know us better is also giving us a follow. I'm sorry, I had to throw it out there. I had to. I was getting way too many people that were asking me about it. But
Yeah.
Charles, either way, thank you so much. I'm looking forward to these future conversations, and like I said, getting to know these neighbors. Let's toss it over to the Vechain Foundation. Jake, any final thoughts from you as we're getting ready to wrap up the space here?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, in the context of what we discussed in the earlier portion, a great session. Really enjoyed sharing all those updates. We've got our big ecosystem launch at the end of the month, so keep your eyes peeled on that one. Obviously, the puzzle pieces will start to fall into place at that point, rather than me, using ... at the end of everything. So yeah, very excited about that. And obviously, Charles, big honor to have you here. Thank you so much for joining. I mean, it's great to have this dialogue directly. I mean, as shit as Twitter is, as you said, I mean, it's fantastic that you can have these kinds of dialogues with CEOs from other foundations. I mean, it's a fantastic kind of medium for conversation in that sense. So yeah, my rounding up thought: excited for what's to come, and excited to have Charles and what's to come with Cardano.
Yes, sir. We'll go to some of our Cardano friends. Stu 1000, thank you for joining us up on stage. Any final thoughts from you?
Oh yeah, sure. I'll make it just real quick, but yeah, I just think just to echo the sentiment and just the entire conversation in terms of the direction I've been in, I would say just the working together aspect. I think it's going to take all chains to come up with innovative unique propositions as far as an area in the Web3 space or the entire landscape, and just how we function as a society. Like people will take different roles and aspects and identify where they can build a base. And I think I know definitely at this point, just all of us working together is definitely going to be the best option if we want to like have the entire landscape of the space move forward. So I think that's like very important. And I just definitely just want to just jump in line with the culture and just not necessarily just having talk, but just having some action to actually back that up and actually have systems and processes. So definitely, just coming in, just trying to build and just grow the entire ecosystem and just doing everybody's part and making that happen.
Let's keep making friends. We're stronger together. And speaking of where we're going to go make some of those friends, Rare Evo, how we doing, team? I cannot wait for the event this year.
We're doing great. We got a big month ahead of us between pushing for our Project Catalyst proposals, checking out Vechain's Grants 2.0, and then just one thing that really, I think, this space proves this point, but in the physical, it can be proven so much further is like, I encourage everyone to go outside of a Twitter space and show up to a blockchain conference and represent your favorite community, whether it's a project within a chain, repping the layer one. Um, ETH Denver's coming up. We're doing a big after party on March 1st. So if you're in the Denver area and you think ETH Denver has nothing to do with you because maybe you're not in the Ethereum scene, go there and represent what are passionate about and want people to understand and adopt and how you can change this industry, because that does have power to it, just showing up and showing out. So if you're interested in joining us in Denver, DM us. We'll make sure you get on the list. It's going to be at Putt Shack, which is basically Top Golf's version of Putt Putt mixed with a very upscale brewery. And so encourage everyone to come check it out. Go to a blockchain conference, take a weekend, maybe treat it like a vacation or a workcation, and see the value of this. And if by August you haven't, or you're in love with the events circuit, come out and check us out at Rare Evo, because VeChain and Cardano will certainly be showing out and bridging the gap further.
Damn right. Could not have said it better, team. Oh, I can't wait for this year. UCO Network, thank you for joining us today. Is there any final thoughts from you and the crew?
Yeah, definitely the pleasure was all ours. Very exciting to participate and to listen all of these insights and thoughtful leadership. February is going to be a huge month for us. February, March. Actually, February is the month where we are going to put in people's hands the stuff that we have been building. So big month ahead. It's also the month where we are publishing our long-awaited green paper. We are also very excited to hear the news from VeChain, especially about the program and X to Earn, where at UCO Network the X means recycle to earn. So we are very excited on that. And as a closing note, kind of a joking aside, we are in Dubai World Trade Center. Our office is sitting at the third floor, and funny enough, PCG is at the sixth. So we are ready to go there for a visit anytime soon. Thank you, guys.
Jake, they should be first up on that list of teams to start working with BCG. I love it. I love the plug, UCO.
Brilliant.
Well, Exo Worlds, final team on the rotation here. Any thoughts from you? Thank you guys for joining the space today.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just so thrilled to have such an awesome discussion, to have Charles here. I think that having like-minded communities come together and co-market each other and show a strength of presence, it makes so much sense. And I think that we're going to see a lot of networks come to that conclusion and jump into the same boat together. So I'm really excited. I know a lot of people that love ADA are ADA guys. I want to get into it, and I'm super excited about whatever the foundation of both of these networks might do together. So thanks a lot for having us and bringing us all together.
Thank you, team, and definitely get into it. I've got to get deeper now. I've got my Mallard orders, but I need some more. So, going to be doing some poking around and investigating. Ferg, any final thoughts from you as we get ready to close up this space? Thank you for always co-hosting. It was a fantastic discussion today, and thank you for your DGen comments. They're always needed.
Yeah, no, man, just great as always. We got a lot done today. Talked about the X to Earn, talked about the new grant programs. I think there's a lot of hype going around that. Then obviously, we've got some big announcements coming up at the end of this month that Jake's been teasing us with. So we're all looking forward to that. And then, obviously, big shout out, Charles. Come back and join us, man. We would love to have you. Well, I've always been a fan of Cardano and Vechain, and so it's really cool to see you come through and talk to us a little bit. So you're always welcome back, and thanks for all the listeners popping in, retweeting the space, commenting your questions, coming up and talking to us. We love it. So I think this was number 15, right, Connor? Is this number 15?
Yeah, crazy, man. 15. I can't wait to see when this hits 100.
Yeah, we're getting close to a year and a half here in a few months of monthly VeChain update spaces. And then big shout out to Jake, as always, coming through on behalf of the foundation, bringing in that foundation account and really showing us love and support. Sig, what about you, my brother?
Yeah, I'll kind of keep it short and sweet. I do want to go back and shout out Rare Evo, and this is not a paid ad, but I am a big fan. They do awesome job. So make sure you get out to their event this year and meet some people and have some fun. And just kind of taking it back to just like joining community spaces and networking with people like on Twitter or whatever. Rare Evo joined, our cross chain space probably year and a half ago. And that led to Rare Evo getting a booth at a VeChain conference called The Hive. They had great response, met some great people from the VeChain Foundation. And then that in turn led to the VeChain Foundation and myself with Mad V Apes having a booth at Rare Evo in Denver. And that had a great turnout. And now it's turned into, Charles being on space and talking with VeChain and potentially some collaborations down the road and just working together, knowing your neighbors. But all of that came to be because of just community interactions, right? Cross-chain community interaction is so important. You never know what opportunities will come from it. So I just wanted to kind of make sure we came full circle on that. Also, I am going to be at Eat Denver. So Rare Evo, I will be at Putt Shack. If you guys haven't been to Putt Shack yet, it is so much fun. Every hole is wicked crazy. Like I said it before, but imagine like the 18th hole, Happy Gilmore, the putt he has to make to beat Shooter McGavin. Every hole is like that. Um, so it's a lot of fun. If you are going to Eat Denver, hit me up in the DMs. Let's link up. Let's have some fun. But thank you everybody for coming. We will definitely be back next month and we'll continue these conversations and see how we can keep pushing this space forward. But Connor, you are going to Rare Evo this year, but I have bad news for you. You are going to be stuck madding the Mad VAs booth the whole time because you are a newbie. So get wrecked, noob. Make sure you're ready for business only.
Dude, no,
fun.
you can't do that
Yeah,
to me.
no, that's it. It's a wrap. See you guys. Love you.
Well, everyone, this was a lot of fun today. We covered a ton. I am really looking forward to next month's discussion, and I'm looking forward to this separate space that we're going to do, quote unquote, getting to know our neighbors over at Cardano. So let's get a bunch of these community leaders and project leaders and just community representatives between these two ecosystems working together to start coordinating this larger discussion. I'm really looking forward to it all. I think this was a fantastic close to the 15th VeChain Monthly Leaders Space. I'm looking forward to seeing you all in spaces in the near future. I hope you all have a great rest of your Sunday, a great end to your week, and we'll look forward to talking again soon. Everyone, have a great day, great night, and we'll see you soon.